Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amy Glasscock with NASCIO, and this is your breakout session called Get to Know Your State CIOs, where we have two newish state CIOs and one veteran state CIO. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator for today, Joe Flynn from Boomi. Joe.
Thank you, Amy. This should be fun. I know everybody's been kind of wanting to be social and the challenge of being virtual and being social and getting to know each other and learning about what's happening in each person's domain. It's really difficult. So they put this social group together with a process. I call it Spinorama, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to walk through a number of questions that are up on a wheel, and they're meant to be light and to kind of give you some ideas about what we're dealing with in the various states. So to that end, I want to quickly do introductions, and I'm going to let each of our panel members speak on their behalf. But we've got everything here from the most venerable of CIOs to the most new of CIOs. So we really have run the gamut. And so to that end, so we can kind of get into some questions and some dialogue, let's start with our venerable CIO, Calvin Rhodes from Georgia. Calvin, can you give us a few minutes of an introduction and one factoid about your state that we would find interesting?
Okay. Calvin Rhodes, state CIO here in Georgia, about 10 and a half years in. And so I guess one of the items about our state, the more films are produced here than in Hollywood, and we contribute that to our tax credit for the movie industry.
And Tyler Perry.
Yes.
Next up is Trina Zano from Wisconsin.
So I'm Trina Zano. I am the state CIO and have been in state government for 26 years. And before that was in private sector. So was the deputy before officially becoming the state CIO, and I'm excited to be part of today's panel kind of round robin process. Interesting fact is we actually have a beer that is brewed just like 2 minutes north of me. And it is only distributed in Wisconsin. So it has become a high commodity for people outside of our state.
Nothing like a scarcity of an item to make it worth a lot of money. And last up, we have our newest CIO, Kevin Gilberton from Montana. Kevin?
Hi, so Kevin Gilbertson from the state of Montana. I've been the CIO in the state for 2 months as of yesterday, so I'm the newest of the group. Before this, I've spent about 30 years in the private sector doing a number of different consulting roles, as well as filling roles like I was a salesperson at Oracle for a little while and things like that. So I've been in multiple different roles outside of the government, working with government, but now for the first time inside. There's a lot of interesting facts about Montana. I guess we're for being the size that we are, we're barely over 1 million people. We just got our second representative due to the census that came out. So we're happy to be back to 2.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I'm Joe Flynn. I'm your moderator for today. I'm the Public Sector Chief Technology Officer of Boomi. Real quick about Boomi. Boomi is an integration platform as a service technology, and the simplest way to put what we do is we connect everyone to everything at any time. It's just as simple as that, and we're not going to make this a sales pitch. So with that, can we get to the Spinorama and see the wheel of questions? Let's give it a roll. Oh, this is a good one to start. And Calvin, I'm going to start with you as the newest, as the longest in term here. But what characteristics do you look for in a vendor partner?
Gosh, well, first of all, I say, someone that we can trust, that they're delivering information that we can rely on, because we're often going to, carry that forward and leverage it. The other advice I would give to new organizations trying to come in and see us is, please go to our website and read our strategic plan. We'd rather talk about some of the things that have shifted or changed versus walking through the entire document. I think it's always good if you ask us to highlight a couple things, but you know, we have limited time to spend with you, and we really like for that to be valuable so that we can see where we can potentially connect, and you can help us, and I'm sure that's what your goal is to become a trusted partner of the states that you work with.
Trina, same question.
Similar to what Alvin said, I think the other component of it really is a group that's willing to listen to our needs and understand our lines of business to show us how we can get the most value out of our investments. You know, we have a tendency sometimes to implement things and not always take advantage of the full implementation and the features that it has to offer. So and then again, a vendor that has a good reputation from a price, you know, quality, service, solution perspective, and delivering on commitments and not walking away when there are issues, right? Standing in the trenches with us. Again, that to us builds that kind of trusted partnership that Calvin spoke of, and we too have a vendor page for vendors to get connected on. So.
And Kevin, I think your take on it's going to be very unique, just coming out of private sector and having been in the consulting business. How would you actually, let's take it from a different perspective. How would you actually look to go out and partner as a vendor with the CIO in a state?
Well, I think it falls in line with what's already been said here. You know, do your homework up front, I think, is the major thing. You know, there's a lot of different priorities going on here, but at the same time, that's limited resources and limited, you know, both from a capital perspective as well as the folks that I can put onto that. And so just having people spam without any connection to, you know, what the priorities of the day are is really not very meaningful. And, you know, I would have done that as a vendor as well, although I've been as guilty of not doing my homework, I guess, as others have, but I've, you know, realized in this role how really important that is. You know, offering up the expertise, making sure that you're offering value from day one is always something that is worth making sure that you're doing, and then just making sure that you're doing this in the spirit of partnership. You know, once again, you know, at the state level, you know, we would love to you know, take advantage of the expertise and resources and all of these types of things, but we have to, like I said, we have limitations on here, and so understanding what our limits are, you know, both from what we can consume as well as, you know, in some cases simply understanding, you know, some budget constraints and things like that is an important thing on our side as well.
Great, thank you. Can we bring up the wheel of questions one more time? Let's give it a spin. So let's start, Kevin, let's start with you on this one. And the question being, what issues are you dealing with now that you didn't expect?
I'm not seeing a whole lot that I didn't necessarily expect. Some things that are a little surprising to me is, you know, some of the adoption of our enterprise applications. So one of the things that I didn't know that I was going to have to do when I came into the role was remain a salesperson. And so I'm having to go around and sell adoption to folks around the organization. Another thing that I didn't expect, you know, also was kind of the disparity. You know, we're you know, competing against the private sector, trying to bring resources into the organization. You know, that disparity was a little bit larger than I thought it would be, and so that challenge of bringing in folks, qualified folks into the organization are, I think, hard now and going to become a little bit more difficult as time goes on. So those are, like I said, I expected those, but the amount of impact there, I think, was the unexpected piece.
Great. Trina, same question?
Yeah, I think being in state government for 26 years, it gives, and being in various roles, it gives you a, a wide perspective of how state government works. But I think the biggest thing that surprised me is really the supply chain issues and the threat volume and complexity, similar to what we heard earlier today. You always expect to see challenges when it comes to security, the security space. But to the extent that we've seen recently and how we have to react to those quite quickly is something I just wasn't anticipating. I think it's making our partnerships with the private and public sector that much more valuable. And we're continuing to look at how do we expand those even more and collaborate more and make sure that we're seeing something and saying something across the different sectors to make sure that we're being responsive to things that come up in our state. So,
Calvin, same question.
Well, a good unexpected item is, state revenues here before any of the federal dollars are up 13% year to date, which is just amazing. And so, I've worked when the budgets have been unexpectedly dropping, and to be in an environment today where it's going in the other direction was something we really didn't expect. And I also think the other item I'd highlight was just the cloud area, that our adoption of that seems like it's going to be much quicker at a faster pace than we had originally intended or thought, a year ago.
Okay, let's get the wheel up and give it another spin. So if everybody's still working from home, what are the state plans for getting back to office? And are you going back to office? So Trina, let's start with you in Wisconsin.
Yeah, prior to the pandemic, we were working on our telecommuting plans and schedules for a lot of our staff. So our division in particular is continuing those plans. We're offering 3 different options for our staff. We have some work that requires people to be in the office. That was true during the pandemic, and that will continue after we all come back. We have the option now for permanent work from home, as well as the hybrid, as you would expect. So, many of our polls, again, of our staff support those options and the flexibilities being offered. We've seen actually a decrease in sick time and some other things during the pandemic, obviously because people aren't as exposed as they used to be. But, we think just having the flexibility in some of their schedules and where they're working is also giving them a positive outlook on their work life. So, and we're seeing other agencies in our state considering some of the same options that we are. Some are leaning more towards hybrid and identifying the specific days that they would like to see. Others are doing 3 options like us. So running the gamut for flexibility.
Okay, Calvin.
Well, we have our offices in the capital city of the state. It's a large urban area. So we had really embraced for the last several years the telework area. And the commutes here are just really terrible. So that was part of our fabric. But, individuals, it was a hybrid model. And so I think we'll move back to that to some degree. But the other thing that's a little different that, for us compared to then is we've got each position either classified as a telework position or remote work. Some of the skill sets that are more difficult to get, we're comfortable with remote work, which means that the individual, cannot drive into the office, but maybe or just come into the office a couple times a year. So whereas our teleworkers are expected to be in the office 1 or 2 times a week. So that's the difference between our 2 models of our 2 classifications of employees.
With adopting remote workers, were you able to now expand your workforce to beyond the state borders, or did you have a state border requirement previously?
Yeah, and that's been actually a little difficult to work through. A surprise. We do have some staff that live outside the state, but also making sure that what are the agreements between the states from an income tax perspective and workers' comp and some of those issues that we've had to work through. So we have a list of probably 25, 30 states that we can have workers work from those states without any issue. And then we have to be cautious on the ones where we don't have agreements with those states.
Okay, Kevin, what about in Montana? Are you still looking to bring people back in the office, or
Yeah,
what's the approach?
we are. So this is changing a little bit. So I've actually been in the office since I started the role. And so, but for the most part, still everybody's working from home. We are doing about a 50% return to the offices in June, and then July we're going to be all back within the offices. Now, at that point, we're honoring any telework agreements that existed prior to the pandemic. And then we are also in the middle of doing a space study, and along with that will come, new recommendations for remote work, moving forward. So I do see, more introduction of hybrid, but for now we're returning to the pre-pandemic state, and then, like I said, through the study, we're going to make adjustments based on that.
Are you expecting that the study is going to look at doing hoteling with cubes and collaborative workspaces?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the goals there is to reduce the overall footprint. At least one of the goals, and that is one of the goals for within my organization as well. So we are talking about doing hoteling and all sorts of things. We do have a situation too where, like within my group, we actually have folks that we've brought on that have never been had an office space, and so we're already having to think about what that looks like. So for some of our folks, we'll be doing some more hybrid right away, simply because they never had a pre-pandemic telework agreement because that role didn't exist or something like that. And so we are going to be rotating some teams in and out of the office to begin with, even before that study is complete.
Okay, let's bring the wheel up and give it another spin. Oh, great question. So what projects have been put on hold over the past year? And Calvin, let's start with you.
All right. Well, I'd honestly say that not really much of anything was put on hold. We did certainly see projects move to a much slower pace of moving through the normal processes. But and then some shifted around that certainly with the health agencies have a greater priority, but probably the one that comes to mind that probably slowed up the most significant was the modular MMIS, the Medicaid system. So, and that one's so complex that having a little extra time with it probably will end up paying off as we've learned more about how to try to approach it. So,
Trina?
Yes, same answer. We really didn't see a lot of our projects get put on hold either. We saw some slow while we addressed the pandemic needs. And for those pandemic needed applications, we saw some of our actual work speed up. And we started to apply some of those into the projects that we had kind of sitting and that we were working on. We were kind of applying some of those same models to some new projects that were coming up. So it was a benefit for us to see that we could be agile and we could do some things, even with some of our procurement rules, that made us be a little bit more agile, given what we were doing during the pandemic. So,
Kevin, what about from your own perspective?
Exact same. We had 0 projects that were put on hold for this, but same thing. We had a few that were slowed down a little bit. Some specifically some that we were beginning. The requirements gathering process took a little bit longer, but certainly didn't. They weren't put on hold.
Okay, that's great. But some new projects did introduce their way into the portfolio, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen for all 3 of you.
oh yeah.
Yet at the same time, you still kept the same project portfolio running and moving forward in this time of great disruption, which is tremendous. Let's bring up the wheel again. I'm waiting for the same question to come up again. What would you go back and tell yourself on that first day? And Kevin, I'm not going to ask you this question because you just started. Well, maybe I will. But actually, you know what? Hopefully you can answer it quickest because you've got the shortest memory on that. So why don't you start?
I'm not really sure. You're probably thinking right, because I'm not sure that I would do anything different than I've done so far. But I think the answer will change over the time. The one thing that I would have spent a little bit more time on before, because the first thing that I did was go around and talk to all of the directors and commissioners, getting their insights within there. I do wish I would have spent a little bit more time internal up front, experiencing my own processes within my own team, as I had some of those conversations, but that hasn't really impacted me too much.
So from the person who has the freshest in their mind to the one who has the farthest away in their mind. Calvin, what about you?
A couple of things come to mind. I would certainly tell myself not to get distracted by all the noise in the environment, to, keep your eye on your priorities, and then communicate. As Kevin was saying earlier, you really have to put your sales hat on and get out and try to build those relationships with the business leaders across the agencies, and that's how you get things done, at least really meaningful items. And then I always laugh, a couple years into the role, one of the deputies at our organization, Steve Nichols, he said, you'll never see the bullet that's going to get you, so don't spend any time worrying about it. So that would be my advice back to myself.
And Trina?
Like the bullet reference, that's a good one, Calvin. I'm going to have to take that one back. Communicate. And I think the other thing is, I'm not used to having as many resources at my disposal. And so there are a lot of things that I was used to doing on my own, like being self-sufficient, right? And I had to have people reminding me, hey, you have resources that can help you with that. And so quickly typing up a PowerPoint presentation or other things, there are people in the organization that is their job to help me, and I have to allow them to do that, right? And so that was a learning experience for me, being in state government for as long as I have. I knew a lot of the avenues and things to kind of navigate as far as relationships goes, but still communicating and using the resources for what they were ready to help me with was something that, going back, it was like, okay, remember these people on your shoulders to help you. So
that's a great learning. I mean, it's really difficult at times to learn to be able to just let that go and really take the force that's around you and actually put them to use in getting your work done. Next question, please, on the wheel. How did priorities change over the past year? Calvin, let's start with you.
Broadband moved up the list significantly, and with lots of priority and resources assigned to it. And fortunately for us, we had already started a statewide mapping effort at the location level. And so the value of that was overnight was pretty apparent, how we could leverage it. An example would be K through 12, identifying where every student lived in the state and what level of broadband connectivity they had available to them. So to be able to feed that back to the school system so they could actually focus on their problem areas. And we were able to identify low income areas and find solutions there. And then, like probably everyone else, chatbots and cyber security was a key focus that we had to even add more resources and focus to because of everyone shifting to work from home.
Yep. Trina?
Yeah, I think, obviously shifting some of the pandemic priorities off of our plate. But we have a great fortune as I started to kind of step into my role to establish our statewide strategic plan. It's a biennial plan. And that was due last year. And so we really established a lot of our priorities. Broadband is obviously one of them, modernization, and meeting people where they are, security, optimizing our kind of the resources that our staff use, and then making sure our staff have flexibility and capabilities within their own work. So, you know, we've really kind of taken the excitement about technology as an opportunity for us to kind of help leverage what we're doing from a state priority perspective. And so it's really an exciting way to start to show business how we can help. And they've been a lot more open and conversational because they've seen how quickly we reacted with some of the collaboration tools and other things at our disposal. And just how easy it was for them to modernize some of the things they were doing just from a business process perspective. So it's been fun and exciting, and we've included now some additional like smaller projects, right, to really use existing tools that we have that some of the divisions didn't necessarily know how to use or didn't have the kind of wherewithal to say, hey, I should be using those tools for some of our day-to-day functions. So.
That's great. Kevin, what was relayed to you in Montana?
Well, I'll echo what's been said already, and then just add to that. I mean, something at the very basic level of simply, you know, shifting paper process to digital process. You know, we still had a lot to deal with there. So I think that fits into the modernization of what Trina was talking about earlier. So, you know, that's been a big thing, you know, and probably a boon of the pandemic is, you know, when we were all at home, it pointed out, you know, the weaknesses of some of those processes and what we needed to do to turn them digital. Now, we're still not 100% of where we want to go there, but certainly looking to you know, beef up the digital redesign effort.
Okay. I know we're starting to come short on time, so I'm actually not going to ask for the wheel, but I am going to go off one of the questions on the list just because I think this will be an interesting one. I think everybody really like to hear what this is, but the question is, what song would you want as your walk-up stage music? Mine personally, Cheeseburger in Paradise, because I could really use to go to the Keys, put on some flip-flops, sit back, drink some beers, and have some burgers, and just relax for a while after this past year. And we're going to go, Trina, you're laughing there. I'll go to you first.
You know, I really struggle with songs because my family always teases me that I can't remember song names or lyrics. But one that came to mind was really Ain't No Mountain High Enough, because I feel like people throw lots of different things at me, and no matter how high that mountain is, no matter how many, you know, trenches and things I have to go through to get there, it's something that, you know, I try and do for others what I would want them to do for me. And so that kind of resonated with me.
That's great. Okay, so we've got an inspirational one and we got a goofy one. Calvin, you're up.
Georgia on My Mind.
Oh, there you go. And a homebody one.
That's right.
Kevin, you're up next.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with an old one that I used whenever I was training someone new when we were getting, you know, a new potential client on the phone. We would play Eye of the Tiger and get, you know, prepared for for a heck of a meeting. So I think I'll stick with that one.
All right. Okay, guys, if there's, we're going to kind of start wrapping here. If you wanted to make one last comment to the group at large, just a little tidbit of information, what would that be? Kevin, start with you.
You know, I'm not really sure, you know, where to go with that one. You know, basically just in terms of, you know, some of the things that were on the list that we didn't get into, you know, so a big priority for me within our state is customer service. So, you know, passion project that I have is we're setting up a call center for ARPA. I'm setting up a chief customer success office within my organization. And so, you know, for those that are reaching out to the state of Montana, those are a couple of big things that we're looking to make some changes on in terms of how we support the rest of the organization. So that's a little priority that hasn't made it to the forefront yet.
Great. Trina?
Yeah, I would say, you know, staff are super exciting for me, right? And seeing the excitement that they have on their faces, and just the divisions and agencies that we work with when we start to talk about our North Stars and some of our future plans and how excited they are about technology. I think, you know, one of the things that we've been really focusing on lately is how do we need to evolve as an organization, right? What skill sets, what process, what technology, what things do we need to be doing to change the way we operate? And, you know, we've seen the traditional moves of things to cloud services, as Calvin and Kevin mentioned, right? And I think it's something that we're going to continue to see ourselves. We're seeing a lot of adoption with, you know, solutions that are already pre-built, right? That they can massage and do some, you know, best of breed adjustments to. But really, you know, it's changing, I think, the way we work and our state works. And so really having more strategic conversations with our staff about how to adjust in kind of those climates and really getting them involved as part of that North Star generation. So fun to see everybody excited about it. So.
Yep. And Calvin, last point.
You know, what comes to mind is, and I often say this, you know, I think all of us believe and understand that, you know, the pace of technology, the change there is just accelerating. And it's likely the slowest it will be today in our lifetime. And so, you know, the partnerships that we need to accomplish things are the people that are on this call with the private sector helping us be innovative, pointing out things that was maybe something didn't go well somewhere else so that we don't repeat some of the same type items. And so I just think the knowledge, you know, NASCIO brings and pulling us all together helps us all be more successful. So.
That's great. Amy?
All right, thanks everyone. I just wanted to let you know that after this session, you can go to back to the conference hub and leave your thoughts about this session in the meeting notes section. I believe that's what it's called, or the conference notes. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks everyone.